any breakouts or any inflammatory skin conditions, just work around them. So I'll be demonstrating it as we go through, but say you had a little breakout here, you wouldn't go over it, you would just work around it. Hi, girls who have just joined. If you feel comfortable sharing your cameras, it does make it a little bit easier because I can give you tips and tricks, but it's up to you. And I'm just going to pop you on mute, if you don't mind. So when you are holding the tool, you want to hold it as flat to the skin as possible. So I see a lot of people on Instagram like doing a lot of scraping. We don't want to scrape, we want to use the full surface area of the tool, do like lovely long strokes. There are just a couple of exceptions to that, and I'll talk you through them as we're going through. You also use the same hand as same side of the face. So you're always going to be pulling rather than pushing. You would swap hands and pull. Has anyone got anything that I need to know about? Is anyone working with any specific skin complaints or conditions? No, you're all good. Great. Okay, so we're just going to start by applying our oil to our neck and face. I would recommend using a bit more than you normally would. About half a pipette is usually good. If you've got a 30 ml bottle like me, about half a pipette is normally good. If you have very, very dry skin, you might need a little bit more. If at any point you feel that the tool is really dragging and you're getting like a bit too much friction, it doesn't feel very easy, just apply a little bit more oil. So whenever you're doing any gua sha, it's advisable to start from the neck and work up to the top of the head and finish on the neck. The neck is the main motorway, the only way that blood can get into our face, into our brain, and the only way that lymphatic fluid can drain out. Today, we're going to start by doing a little bit of work on the chest. So if any of you have been working from home, maybe not in the best kind of desk setup, and you can do this either over or under clothes, it doesn't really matter. If you've been sat like this a lot, or if you're a facialist like me and you sit like this a lot, it really compresses all of these muscles. So you can actually use the tool to give yourself a little bit of a massage anywhere on your body. If you have a tool like mine, we're going to be using the big curve. All gua shas have this, so whichever one you're using, it'll be the big curve. Just starting in the center of the chest where you can feel it's a little bit bonier, and just pulling out towards the underarms and giving it a little wiggle. If you're doing it on skin, you might want to apply a little bit of oil there as well. Otherwise it might be a little uncomfortable. Over clothes, it has a bit of slip. And when you're doing this, remember you want to keep the tool as flat to the skin surface as possible so you can take advantage of the full surface area. Use a slow, deep pressure and you work outwards. So this is wonderful for any kind of tension across the pectoral muscles. Great, not as like, obviously none of us can really go for massages at the moment. So if you are feeling a little tight, it's really wonderful to be able to do a bit of self-practice. And you can also change the direction a little bit. So you're working like a little bit up if that feels good for you, depending on your kind of your anatomy and what you've been doing with your body. Very nice. And just moving on to the other side, working from this kind of central bony bit, keeping the tool as flat to the skin as possible and pulling out. Keeping the tool flat, flat, flat. So not working with the hard edge like that, you're keeping it flat like that. Perfect. Pulling all the way out to the underarm and giving a little wiggle when you get there. So we're going to be working a lot with the lymphatic system today. The lymphatic system is involved in our immune system and also our body's way of detoxifying and excreting used cells, not cells, but like things that have been metabolized, metabolic waste. So we have big gatherings of lymph nodes underneath our arms and in the central reservoir. Really nice. We're also just going to do a little bit of a shoulder massage using the tool as well. So if you are a little bit tight in your shoulders, this is a really wonderful thing to do. If you've ever had acupuncture, they may have done it to you, and sha in gua sha actually means scraping. So that's not how we use it on the face, but it can be used like that on the body. It is quite stimulating. You can burst blood vessels. In traditional Chinese medicine, they say that's like detoxifying, and it's a release of like blockages. If you don't want to be covered in marks, just don't use that hard pressure. But this is an area where you can use the hard edge. So like this bit, to scrape using opposite hand to opposite side, working on the shoulder muscles, which sits at the back. You don't want to be working in this front bit, at the back, being mindful of your shoulder blades. If you have any particular knots that you felt have been there for a little while, you can take one of the pointy bits, it doesn't matter, any kind of hard little pointy edge, and just press and hold, which is essentially what massage therapists do to you when they are breaking up kind of the little knots and crunchy bits that you feel in muscles. You can either do a static hold or you can do some little circular motions. You can also use this up the back of the neck as well. So on the back of the neck, we have our spine and two muscles either side of it, working up on the muscle, not the bone. So don't use it over bone, it won't feel very nice, but if you have any neck tension, and you can go kind of using a deeper pressure and a slower pace. And again, if you find any nice little crunchy bits or knots, you can press and hold. I personally find this much easier than trying to do any self-massage with hands. Wonderful. And just coming on to the other side, using whichever hand is easier for you. Just working on the shoulder muscle back here. Encouraging blood flow to the muscle. Great for if you have any achy shoulders. This is also actually a very thing to teach somebody else to do. So if you are there with anyone and they have some free hands and you can convince them to give you a bit of a massage, this is actually quite a difficult thing to get wrong. So you can always encourage any partners or flatmates to have a go for you if you're feeling quite stiff. And then just working up the neck, avoiding the spine. And you can work all the way up to where the skull starts to come out a little bit. So the top of the neck, the base of the skull. Wonderful. Just before we come to work on the front of the neck and subsequently the face, I just want us to do a little front neck stretch. If you place your hands just beneath the collarbones and apply a little bit of downwards pressure, we're just going to tilt the head back and stretch out those front neck muscles. So if we've spent a lot of time looking down at screens, these muscles become compressed. So applying a little bit of downwards pressure and tilting them back is wonderful just to stretch them out. Great. How's everyone feeling so far? Okay. Cool. So I'm going to start using my right hand. You guys can start with whichever hand feels comfortable for you, but we're going to do one side of the face first, always keeping it in the same hand, and then do the other side of the face. So we're just going to start by placing the tool just underneath the ear and working down towards the collarbone. And we'll repeat this a few times. Feel free to give it a little wiggle when you get to the collarbone. So whenever we're going down, we're promoting lymphatic drainage. If you've been suffering from any acne or puffiness or kind of congestion under the skin, this is a really lovely pathway to work, as it's just encouraging any kind of stagnant lymph to move away. Really nice. And next we're just going to change direction by flipping our hand slightly and work up the neck. So I want to do a little bit of work on these lines today. I'm just going to pop my neck off actually so I can show you a bit better. On these lines. So whenever you're working, try and use your hand to, I don't know if you can see, but I'm applying a tiny bit of downwards pressure here. So I'm making the skin quite tight. You're then using the tool to go up while I'm pulling in the opposite direction, giving everything a bit of a stretch while also releasing the muscles, encouraging blood flow to the skin. And again, you can give it a little wiggle when you get to the top if it feels nice for you, a little bit of extra massage. With any of these moves, you can repeat them as few or as many times as you like in your own practice. You know when to stop if the skin starts to feel prickly or uncomfortable at all. As I said, nothing in this practice should be painful. Next, so we avoid this area as it's pretty sensitive. It doesn't, if you like give it a tap, it doesn't feel very nice to poke. So just using the same thing, applying a little bit of downward pressure just underneath the collarbone and just working, tilting the chin forward and working underneath the chin. And each time you stroke forward, you're pulling with this hand down a little bit, so there's a counter stretch. And the pressure that you're using is not a huge amount of pressure. Don't think about coming like in or down on the skin. Think more about what you're trying to like lift, stretch, as if you're spreading butter on your skin. Wonderful. So all of this area is quite prone to fluid retention. So if you ever do feel a little bit puffy in this area, this is a really lovely one for you. You can also work, so anchoring just kind of midway on the neck, coming from just keeping the tool in the exact same position that you are, coming from just underneath the jaw to just onto the face. Trying to keep the tool as flat to the skin surface as possible, doing the little counter stretch down as you push up. Good. Really good, everyone. So try, if you hold the tool with the curve to the ceiling, who am I talking to? Casey. Curve with the tool with the curve to the ceiling and then flip your wrist that way. Yeah, exactly. And push this way. Yeah, perfect. So there's a big muscle called the platysma. It runs from around here all the way down onto the chest. That's what starts to lose tone if you ever notice like any loss of elasticity along the jawline. So it's important to work like the muscle as a whole rather than just focusing on micro bits, as everything works in synergy with each other. Wonderful. Great. Next, we're going to take the tools. So if you have my tool, you'll have your wiggles to the ceiling, serrated edge to the outside of the face, and then you're just going to tilt it forward. So wiggles to the ceiling, serrated edge to the outside of the face, tilt it forward and just pop it under the chin. If you have a traditional gua sha tool, nice. Which side of the face are you working on, Casey? That side. Put the tool in your other hand. Other hand. Yeah, great. And then you want the heart, like the top bits of the heart facing the outside of the face, the curve facing your neck. Outside, yeah, so curve facing the neck, heart bits to the outside. So you're kind of holding it like that. Perfect. And you're just going to put it under the chin. So like you're resting your chin on a shelf. And then we're going to pull to the outside of the face. Perfect. And we'll repeat this a few times. So also great, you don't have to use your other hand. I just do it habitually to get a little bit more massage in there. But of course, if you enjoy it, please go ahead. If it's one too many things to think about, don't worry about it. You can leave it alone. So this is wonderful for sculpting the jaw, helping with any kind of puffiness under the chin. With any of these areas, if you do get any recurrent breakouts or recurrent bits of congestion, it's just a great way to break up what's kind of going on underneath the skin surface. And then just coming down the neck for a couple of strokes, using the curve, edge, any curve, exactly. Perfect. Nice. So moving up onto the face now, we're just going to work methodically up the face, working on different muscle groups. So if you are using my tool, wiggles to the ceiling, short edge to the center of the chin, serrated edge to the outside, popping it in the middle and just pulling out. Yes, exactly, right, yeah. Just pulling out. And you want to be going quite slow and applying a little bit of pressure, but mostly what you're applying is like energy going that way rather than like into your face. So you need to think that you're like stretching and lifting out towards the side of the face. I always think it's quite nice just to anchor where you're starting from and work out. And again, you get that little kind of counter stretch. Wonderful. You may find that you're getting a little bit stuck around here. You might hit a speed bump, which is the masseter muscle, the big jaw muscle. If you are finding that, you can give a little wiggle to get over it. Great. Really nice, everyone. And notice how your skin is feeling. If you start to get any heat, irritation, just decrease the pressure a little bit. Really nice. So we're just going to do a little bit of work into this big masseter muscle. If you just pop your hand there, your fingers there for 1 second, clench your teeth together, and you should feel the muscle pop out. That's what we're going to be working on. Does anyone suffer from any jaw tension or teeth grinding or anything like that? No, you guys are all good. That's amazing. We'll do a little bit of work into it anyway, as it's a big muscle. So starting by just doing some repetitive strokes over it, keeping the tool as flat to the skin surface as possible, and not using a particularly hard pressure. If you like, you can do a little stroke with your hand between each. I think that it's really lovely to combine both manual massage and gua sha. And then we're going to do a little bit of acupressure into it. So using the pointy edge of the tool, any point, yep, you can just press and hold into the muscle and do some gentle little static circles. So the point stays in the same place, you're just slightly rotating it. Wonderful. And if you want to move to a little different point, so slightly down, you can do that. Really nice. Notice if you feel any little crunchy bits, tender bits, anything like that. And that's wonderful just to do a little bit of work into. Really nice. Coming now to the corner of the mouth, using the tool how we were, so we were like this before, we're going to be here, wiggles to the ceiling, tool, corner of the mouth. Great, keeping the tool as flat to the skin surface as possible. Anchoring here, just next to the mouth, we're going to pull out in a straight line towards the ear. So here we're working on the rosaurus, the muscle that contracts to make us smile. And we're working with a slow, deep pressure here as we're working into a muscle. Really nice. Great, everyone. Wonderful. And then keeping the tool in exactly the same position for everyone, just moving slightly up again, we're going to work in a diagonal from this line, the nasolabial line, across the whole cheek. Just anchoring here and working slowly across the whole cheek on a diagonal. So you're kind of heading from the nasolabial line up towards the temple. Keeping the tool as flat to the skin surface as possible, moving like you're spreading butter. Really nice. So here we're working across the zygomaticus, another one of the muscles that is involved in any of like our buccal or mouth expressions. Really nice. If this little line here is a concern for anyone, this is how we can do a little bit of deeper work on it. So by pulling the skin kind of apart using these two fingers and using any pointy edge of the stone, do some quick, light, very light back and forths over it. So if you just use a point that's a hard edge, any kind of hard edge, yeah, exactly. So keeping the skin as tight as possible and doing light friction moves over it. The idea is to encourage or increase microcirculation to the skin. You may get a little bit of flushing, that's great, that is what you're going for. And anytime you're encouraging microcirculation to the area, it's very plumping, you're encouraging collagen and elastin production, and that also increases skin's hydration levels as collagen retains moisture. Really nice. Using a kind of pointy bit again, so like we were like here, we're now going to come to work underneath the cheekbone. So if you just feel where your cheek is and you feel where your cheek isn't, just beneath it, we're going to work up underneath that. So using a point, we're going to run it underneath the cheekbone. Very good. You guys all look like pros. Yeah, and if you can, just do a little bit of an anchor as you're moving along. And you can give a little wiggle when you get close to the ear. If you do find you have any tension in here, you can also just press and hold and do a little bit of acupressure in one part, release and move along and repeat it in another area. And as you can see, my mouth lifts when I go up. So that is kind of what you should, yeah, exactly. That's what you should be getting. Perfect. I think you're the easiest group I've ever taught. You're all doing so well. Really nice. And I just like to come back down the neck between each little part, particularly if we've done any deep work, and a little wiggle at the collarbone. Wonderful. Using this big curve, serrated edge to the ceiling if you are with me, or little edge, I would flip it over the other way. Perfect. Just popping the curve in this line. We're just going to do a little bit of a lift up. So this is a very lovely move, trying to keep the tool as flat to the skin as possible so we're not scraping the skin at all. This is a really lovely move because it covers a lot of the face. You can use it pretty lightly and see good results because it is encouraging circulation to the skin like gua sha does all over the face, but also it's quite nice for depuffing and just giving the muscles and the skin a little bit of a lift. And you can change the angle. So for example, if you want to work on this area, you can just start to work up, doing a little counter stretch down. And you can also come next to the nose and use it as a little bit more of a depuffing. So you're depuffing underneath the eye, giving a little wiggle when you get to the ear. This is also a great one for any congested sinuses. You really, really don't need to use a deep pressure here. You can keep it superficial, light, and you'll still see good results. In fact, probably better results than doing hard pressure. Nice. So just coming to do a little bit more work underneath the eye, you can use whatever part of the tool feels good for you. I'm going to use this so I have a shorter edge, a little bit more control. Just holding onto the side of my nose here, I'm going to kind of follow it out and then pull out and give a little wiggle when I get to the side. So the pressure that you're using here is dead light. The skin around your eyes is so much thinner than anywhere else on the face, and we're working over bone, the orbital bone, so there's no need to use a really, really heavy pressure. And we'll just start by doing a few strokes like this, just getting a feel for it. Lovely wiggles. Really nice. If puffiness or dark circles is a concern for you ever, you can use these two top fingers that are on top of the tool to encourage the skin to do a bit of a caterpillar, like wormy type motion. So you're pumping out and then giving a wiggle when you get to the end. So if you think about how the heart pumps blood around the body, any kind of pumping is also encouraging stagnant lymph, oxidized blood to just move along naturally. Other things that do the same thing are exercise, drinking water. So we're going for lots of wheeze in the daytime. It all has the same effect. But I guess this is just a bit more targeted. Really nice. You can also work changing the angle slightly so that we're working a bit more on a diagonal just on the side here and doing a little counter stretch down. So this is great for any kind of crow's feet, wrinkles. You're all very young, but if any fine lines are of concern to you, this is a lovely one to do. Something else that you can also do here is kind of pulling the skin a little bit tight using the same light friction motion that you were doing before, either with a pointy edge just here. Light, so light, super, super light, as your feet feel it's quite bony around here. Or if you have my tool, you can also use the serrated edge for a little bit of friction. Which I think feels a little bit softer than using the hard edge of the tool. This technique can be used on any lines anywhere that are of a concern to you. You just do it, you always pull the skin tight. You do it lightly if you're moving quickly. You just do it a little bit. You see how the skin is, see what's going on, and then see if you can go back to it. Okay, great. How is everybody feeling? Good? Good. So next we're going to move on to the forehead a little bit, starting just underneath the brows. So I'm going to be using this kind of edge, keeping it in the same position that we were, and I'm just going to be running it under the eyebrows. Exactly, great. So take it really, really slow. Don't go fast here. And we're coming kind of underneath the brow. If you just pinch your brow to feel where it is, give it a little pinch. We're running underneath this bit here. So it may feel a little bit creepy, but it's a nice release for the muscle that sits there. Wonderful. And then just working on top of the brow a little bit. So actually working on top of the corrugator muscle. You can place your fingers in the middle, a little anchor in the middle, and do a nice counter stretch as we pull across. You can also break it up. Instead of doing the whole brow at once, you can place your anchor a little bit further in and just work on half of it. If you're finding this area a little bit tender, that's completely normal. It is a muscle, it does hold tension just like anywhere else. If this area is of any concern to you, the little frown lines, this is where you start. Working on these muscles is where you start, as they are the ones that are responsible. We're just going to take the tool and do a couple of upward strokes, just short ones over this third eye, between the brows, just to encourage a little bit of blood flow to the area before we do some deeper work. Really nice, everyone. Okay. In this part as well, we're just going to pull the skin tight and either using the hard edge, or you can use the serrated edge, whichever is more comfortable for you. Do some light back and forth over any little frowny lines that are here. This is definitely one for doing in front of a mirror, not in front of the TV. Whenever I teach it to people, they're like, oh my God, I'll do it in front of the TV and I'll never have a line again, and it never ends well. So just try it in front of the mirror the first couple of times, see how your skin reacts. And once you feel more comfortable, maybe then you'll be brave enough. I've made the mistake more than once in front of the TV, so I actually never recommend it. Don't do it. Nice. So we're just going to do a little bit of work on the brow. So what sits on our brows are these two big muscles. They go back into the hairline. They're called the frontalis muscles. They contract, shorten to raise up our eyebrows, and that's what causes these lines. So anchoring our fingers kind of just above the brow, using the curve of the tool so it fits kind of like over the arch of your eyebrow. Great, keeping the tool as flat to the skin surface as possible. Anchor just above the brow. We're going to pull down with our hand and up with the tool. Nice. And the energy, the force is up rather than into the head. So the pressure on the skin shouldn't be that hard. Nice. Wonderful to give these muscles a little stretch. You can also continue all the way back into the hairline, giving a little wiggle into the hairline as the muscles do not stop where our hair starts. Nice. You can also use the same technique to work out, putting your little anchor in the center of the forehead, using the curve of the tool as flat to the skin surface as possible, just pulling out and giving a little wiggle when you get to the hairline. Wonderful. You can also use the same technique for any lines. So pulling the skin tight, using either the serrated edge or a hard edge, you work perpendicular to the line, so up and down. Again, you just do a little bit, you see how everything's looking. Is everything okay? You'll find that the blood does come quite quickly, like you can see it on my skin, for anyone who's watching the recording. And yeah, so you just do a little bit, take a little break, come back to it a little bit, take a little break. And that's how you would work there. Just to finish up this side of the face, we're going to come back down the neck and do some wiggles into the collarbone. And then we're going to repeat on the other side. How is everyone feeling? Good? Yeah? Is there anything on that side that we missed that you are hoping to learn about? No? All good? Great. So swapping hands with the tool. So we're working with the other hand now. We're just going to start by placing the big curve of the tool just underneath the ear and doing some strokes down the neck and giving a little wiggle when we get to the collarbone. Really nice. And if you don't want to use your hand, you don't have to. If you feel like doing some little strokes, then you definitely can. If as well, at any point you need to apply some more oil, please do. If you need to give your wrists a little shake, your head a little shake, please do. Really nice. And then just flipping our hand the other way, creating a little anchor just underneath the collarbone with our hands. We're going to start to work up the neck while applying a little bit of downwards pressure. Not a lot, it's quite subtle, just to get that little stretch of the muscles. As I said before, these muscles in this day and age are so often contracted. We spend a lot of time looking down and our heads are heavy. So these muscles do quite a lot of work. Wonderful. We can also work under the chin a little bit here again. This is one of my favorite areas to work because the results are really like impactful. Really nice. Then placing our anchor kind of halfway up the neck, applying a little bit of downwards pressure. We're going to work from just underneath the jaw to just above the jaw. So I'm going from just underneath the jaw to just above the jaw. Great. And applying a little bit of downward pressure with that hand. Really nice. If you're using my tool, we're going to take wiggles to the ceiling, serrated edge to the outside of the face, and then tilt it forward so it's like we're sitting on a shelf. Exactly right. Yeah, you had it. Yeah, perfect. And just swap hands. Yeah, so you're using this hand, other hand. Perfect. Then just sit on it like a shelf and pull to the outside of the face. Wonderful. And you can follow along with your hand if you want. And we'll just work underneath the jaw a little bit. So this is a lovely sculpting move. Also great for if you suffer from any hormonal breakouts, just to move any kind of stagnant lymph away from this area. Good for like mask knee vibes as well, if you guys have been noticing any more breakouts from that. Yeah, so don't work over any active breakouts, avoid them, but this is just wonderful to work in the general area. It's very, very effective. Great. Nice. And then moving on to the face. So we're going to have wiggles to the ceiling, short edge to the center of the chin, creating a little anchor here. Really good. Keeping the tool as flat to the skin surface as possible. We're just going to pull to the outside of the face and give a little wiggle when we get there. Really nice. If this isn't your dominant hand, it may feel a little bit more of an effort, but you do get used to it. And if you find that you're hitting a little speed bump when you hit your jaw, just do a little, when you hit your jaw muscle, just do a little wiggle to get over it. Nice. And we'll come to do a little bit more work on that. So just to find where it is, if you pop your fingers here, clench your teeth together, and you'll feel the muscle pop out. Release the jaw, keep a little bit of space between the top and bottom jaw, and we're just going to do some repetitive strokes. So keeping it just over this jaw muscle, it runs from about there to there. Quite little repetitive strokes. Perfect. And yeah, you can either anchor and get a little bit of a stretch in there, or give it an extra bit of massage by using your hand. If you wanted to go a little bit deeper, you could use any point of the tool and press and hold. And this can feel strong. If you do notice that you're finding any little tender bits, tensiony bits, it's great to release them, apply a little bit of pressure, ease off when it gets too much, and just make sure that you drink lots of water after this. Don't go straight for the wine. Really nice. Great. So next we're going to come wiggles to the ceiling, short edge to the center, and just move to the corner of the mouth and just creating a little anchor here, we're going to pull to the outside of the face in a straight line going from the corner of the mouth out towards the ear. Giving a little counter stretch with this hand. Really nice. Great. Perfect. Next, keeping the tool in exactly the same position in your hand, we're going to run from this line here, diagonal across the cheek, up towards the temple. Again, using your hand as a little anchor. And as you're working on bone, you don't have to use a particularly hard pressure. Keep it light, superficial. Also, with your grip on the tool, you can hold it pretty gently. You don't need to like squeeze it tight. It's not going anywhere, don't worry. You can just pinch it softly between these hands and just use a light pressure up. Otherwise, you'll find that you start to feel quite tired, I think. Really nice. Next, we're going to do a little bit of work underneath the cheekbone. So if you just feel where your cheek is and you feel where your cheek isn't, we're going to work underneath there. So using the hard edge of the tool, we're going to run it underneath. And you should find your lip kind of lifting a little bit as you hook up underneath. This should feel mildly uncomfortable. But this is a really, really lovely one for sculpting cheekbones, for releasing any tension that's underneath there. Great. And if you wanted to do a little bit harder work, you could do some press and holds, just all the way kind of underneath that cheekbone. Really nice. Now we're going to come to use this big curved edge again. We can do a few little strokes down the neck. And then come to position the tool just on those lines. And we can just use this as a lifting stroke, creating a little anchor. And you can also change the direction of that angle. Depending on where you feel you're losing a little bit of elasticity, where you feel needs a little lift. But yeah, this is a lovely move if you're short of time because it's working quite a large area of the face. And again, the pressure that you use here is pretty light, it's superficial. Hold the tool gently, work up gently, keeping the tool as flat to the skin surface as possible. Before we go to do a little bit of sinus work, I just forgot that we didn't do any little bits of friction over this line. So just pulling the skin tight and doing some back and forths. Over there. Nice. Okay, placing the curve edge next to the nose like this, keeping the tool as flat to the skin. Yeah, so just under the eye, keeping the tool as flat to the surface as possible. We're just going to pull out. Great. And you can anchor it here just next to the nose. So this is a lovely one for any kind of sinus congestion. If you're experiencing any puffiness under the nose, this is also a great one if you've had any like allergies or colds or anything like that. Nice. And then just doing a little bit of work underneath the eye. You can keep the tool in the same position. I prefer to use it like a little bit shorter like this. And we're just going to work gently underneath the eye. And give a little wiggle when you get to the side. The pressure that you use here is very, very light. You're working over bone. You don't want to end up with any bruises. And if you wanted to take it one step further, you can use the top of your fingers to do a little caterpillar pump all the way along. So the tool never loses contact with the skin, it's just going in a bit more of a pumping motion. Really nice. How's everyone's faces feeling? Good? Great. So we're just going to come now to work up under this brow. So using the pointiest edge, just working underneath the eyebrow. And it may feel quite uncomfortable. For me, it feels quite uncomfortable. Obviously been doing a lot of frowning recently. If you wanted to feel a little bit stronger, you can use this tool up underneath the brow using your top finger to kind of press down. So it's like a pinching, you know how you would like pinch and hold as you went along. You can do that using the tool as well. So press and hold, 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 press and hold. And then just doing some more soothing strokes over the eyebrow. I find any work underneath there so painful. Really nice. Before we go on to the forehead, let's just do a little bit of work on the side of the eyes as well. So keeping the tool in the same place, anchoring just here and doing a little lifting move. And here we can also pull the skin tight and do a little bit of friction. Keeping it super light, 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 light. Wonderful. Coming back to the forehead, placing that curve over the eyebrow, using your hand to anchor, and we're just going to pull upwards, and we can go into the hairline if you don't want to. If you don't want to get oil in your hair, you don't have to, but if you want to, you can do some wiggles into the hairline. And use that hand, the supporting hand, to do a little counter stretch, so you're kind of working away from each other. Nice. Really, really nice, everyone. You can also change the direction and work out, anchoring in the center of the forehead. Really nice. And then just doing a little bit of work into any of those lines, using a hard edge or using the serrated edge, whichever you find more comfortable. I've switched back to my dominant hand because I don't have enough dexterity with my left hand, but just pulling the skin tight and doing some little up and down motions. Really nice. Before we finish this side off on the neck, I just want us to do a couple of acupressure points that are really good for any kind of puffiness or any sinus congestion. So we're going to do both sides. There are 3 points on each side. So you can start on whichever side you want. I'm going to start on my right side. And the first one is just next to the nose, hooking up. So your top lip lifts again, and you can just use the point of any kind of pointy point of the tool. Great. And you would hold this for a couple of breaths. Wonderful. The next one is directly underneath the pupil and up underneath the cheekbone. So again, you're kind of going up and under rather than just down and in. So directly underneath the pupil, hooking up underneath the cheekbone. And you would hold them for a few breaths. The next one is here, where the eyebrow meets the nose, and you just pop your tool in there, and it can feel, again, quite strong. And then we're just going to come to repeat on the other side. So the first point is just next to the nose, huffing, pointing up in towards, hooking under. And you can take some deep breaths while you're here. The second one is directly underneath the pupil, up underneath the cheekbone. Exactly, perfect. Taking some nice deep breaths. Wonderful. And the next one is just here where the nose meets the eyebrow, and you're pressing kind of up. If you ever did have a cold and this felt too strong to use with the hard tool, you can of course just use your fingers and it will automatically not be as strong. Great. Now just using the big curve to just come back down the neck a few times, giving a little wiggle when we get to the collarbone. And we're just going to finish off with a little bit of tapping with our hands, light taps all across the chest, working out towards the underarms and down into the central reservoir of lymph nodes. This is great for immunity. This is also great for energizing yourself if you're getting sluggish during the day. Wonderful. And give your hands a shake off any stagnant energy that you've moved, ready for the weekend. And really well done. You guys did so well. How are your faces feeling? Good? Good, yeah? Does anybody have any questions at all for me? No?
What's the best way to clean your gua sha tool?
Yeah, so the best way to clean your gua sha tool is just by using a little bit of hand soap or facial cleanser. I would recommend popping a flannel in the sink when you do it, because if you do drop them, they will smash. If you don't want to get them slippery, you can just use, like I use the Dr. Bronner hand sanitizer spray, and it hasn't, like we use alcohol on them at work and it actually hasn't ruined the stone. It probably will age them a little bit quicker, but we do it like 10 times a day and the stones are still fine every day and the stones are still fine. So I think that it's fine to use like a little alcohol wipe or a Dettol wipe or just use soap and then put them away for next time. Does anyone else have any questions? No, you all did really, really well. Thank you so much for joining me. We will be doing workshops, different kinds of workshops throughout lockdown and ongoing. We're launching an on-demand service next week that is, we're trying to make like the Netflix of skincare. So there's going to be a huge bank of tutorials. It'll be a pay monthly service that will include 2 workshops a month as part of the membership. So keep an eye out. I think that'll be launching on Wednesday. And yes, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.